Alright, Diablo players, let's talk about it. The most rare items in the game in Season 10 are going to be the brand new blue items. Not the magic, but you'll see a blue beam. You can see the screenshot over here, and you'll probably see some drop in the gameplay. So these are the brand new Chaos Uniques, and I wanted to go ahead and tell to you guys and talk about how rare it is, as well as give Blizzard some feedback, because I simply think that they are way too rare to get the correct one. Now, just getting one to drop isn't as rare as a Mythic, but getting the correct one to drop is actually, in a lot of situations, going to be very frustrating, and this is one area where I want to give them some feedback, so hopefully they can make it a little bit easier for us in Season 10, because I want to say Season 10 may not be a super casual season, even though Diablo 4 I would say is a casual action RPG. The game state in Season 10 is about to shift things up. It may be kind of one of those games where it feels like if you're not playing 30 hours minimum a day, you do not get those items that you want. You can't make that build. And I see people all the time complain about specifically the Mythics, but I want to go into the numbers here because it's pretty bad. So, to kind of explain how these work right here, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the item Banished Lord's Talisman, right? It's that amulet. It gives you the ability to get like a bonus, but we don't really care too much about like the effects of the items here. It's mainly just going over the rarity and kind of some feedback, but I'll also go over the basic rules. So pretty much, Banished Lord's Talisman, it's only an amulet, right? But in Season 10, we can now get the brand new Chaos Uniques. Those are the super rare blue items. They can drop as other items in a incorrect category. So basically, Banished Lord's Talisman, it could be a chest piece. You can get Banished Lord's Talisman even in the gloves. Now, there is a rule. You cannot run like 5 Banished Lord's Talismans or anything like that. You can only still equip one, even if you equip one of the correct ones, there is still a game limit of 1. However, the main issue with this is that there are certain builds that really need a very specific greater affix on the item. And just like any uniques, this is basically a 1 in 4 chance. If it drops as a ancestral, right, a greater affix item, you can get that 1 greater affix. Some builds, they need like 2 of these to really min-max, and that's totally fine, but I think that these are very, very rare. And also I wanted to mention that these always roll with the power as perfect. So that's a good thing, because otherwise this would be even more of a nightmare in terms of like the drop. These roll on average about 20% better for the unique power. So normally Banished Lord's Talisman special unique power gives you up to 60x increase of the overpower damage that you get from the core skill guaranteeing to overpower, and now we get it at 72. So again, it's about 20% in most cases in terms of the number, and I'm going to use an item that a lot of people are probably familiar with, which is Ophidian Iris, right? So we always want to get this power to be the highest roll, and it is there. Now, in certain scenarios, you usually want to get a very specific thing to be greater affix, whether it's Primordial Binding or maybe Int in this case, whatever the case may be for that item, that's like a 1 out of 4 chance. The thing is that in this category, right, it doesn't matter if it's the pants, the boots, or the helmet, or the chest piece, they still have a chance to roll all of the stuff that you don't want to roll, and that doesn't even include getting the correct greater affix on a very specific thing, because, again, certain builds, you have to have that greater affix, otherwise the item is garbage, just like any other unique in the game. If it's not greater affix on the correct one, you throw it away, right? That's the reality of the game at the highest level if you want to acquire certain things. So I wanted to give you guys kind of the breakdown, and I'm going to also assume in this video that the items don't have what's called like a weight. Normally in a lot of action RPGs, amulets have a higher like rarity, so therefore you get less of, let's say, the amulets. I don't know if this applies because it just drops as a chest piece, as a pair of pants. I don't know internally what that number is, so I'm going to assume that everything is fair, like as in like your chances when you get one of these to drop, right, the brand new Chaos Uniques, like let's say you really need Axial Conduit, but you need it in like the boots category, right? I'm assuming that all of these have an equal chance to drop for the sake of the video. Again, I don't have like the official stats here, but if we have a chance of getting what we want, and I'm using 22 as the number in the video for like Barbarian, but it can apply to most classes. It's about like 1 in 22 to get it in that correct roll, right? So you can either get Axial Conduit in boots, you can get Banished Lord's Talisman, you get Crown Illusion. Basically, the pool of items here, in terms of like the ratios, is a 1 out of 22 chance, right? Again, you have to count the generic uniques and the class uniques in the number pool, right? And then we have to go and make it in a 1 out of a 5 chance over here. So this will be a 20% chance to get it in the correct slot. What I mean by correct slot over here is the helmet, the chest piece, all 5 of these. So again, helmet, chest, we have the gloves, we have the pants and the boots. The Chaos Uniques do not roll as rings, but some classes may have one ring that does work in the Chaos Unique category, which could inflate the pool even more. Again, I'm just using the Barb for an example here, or like the Sorc is pretty close as well. So we have a 1 out of 5 chance for it to roll in the correct slot, right? Because there's some builds in the game, like if you're playing, let's say, the Spiritborn Evade build, right? You need to get cooldown reduction, otherwise the build literally doesn't function. So you need to get the item in a very specific slot, right? Maybe you can't use the boots, you can't use whatever. Basically, at the end of the day, you have to get each item in its own correct slot. Now, sometimes you can get, let's say, Banished Lord's Talisman here. You can get, let's say, you really need to get Axial Conduit, right? You need both of these. These could be flip-flopped, so depending on your build and whatever you're looking for, this could be a little bit more lenient, right? You can maybe get it at a 2 out of 5 until the very end. That last piece is always going to be a 1 out of 5 because it's your last slot. So again, you have a 20% chance there, and then you have a 25% chance because every single item as a Chaos Unique will always roll as a greater affix, meaning it will get the little star next to it. So with that math, again, that's a 1 out of 4 chance. You could get technically more GAs, but it's a 1 out of 4 to get the correct one. Obviously, if it's more, that's even better. Technically, it's a little bit higher, but I'm not going to go over that because getting like a triple, quadruple GA item, good luck if you're looking for, again, the correct stats and the correct roll. So basically, this is the drop rate, which basically is kind of lower than a Mythic in terms of the numbers here. So if I put this in a probability calculator of all 3 events occurring, right? So we need all 3 events to occur. So again, this first one over here is that 1 out of 22. So that's that rate, which is 0.45, and then we have 20% and 25%. Again, this is the greater affix. This is the item category. So again, that's a 1 out of 5, 1 out of 4, right? So if you need all 3 of these to occur, there you go. That's the number. Obviously, it's pretty slim, and this is why I want to give them some feedback of, like, you know, help out the gamer dads that don't have, you know, 30 hours a day to play the game. I think this is really, really important, especially if you need to get a 2 greater affix one, it's even worse. Or if there is some easier ways to implement this into the game, I think that is ideal because this season is really good, but I think that a lot of people will maybe quit if they don't give us easier access to these. Now, as far as getting these super rare blue mythic items, or they're essentially called the Chaos Uniques, but some people are calling them the blue mythic items. These are super, super rare, and you only really get them consistently off of doing the brand new Infernal Hordes and finishing it to the very end and killing the brand new boss. You get, on average, it's anywhere from 1 to 3, so if you want to consider about 2, that's what you're looking at. Now, you can also get these by just playing the game and getting them inside of the exalted bosses or the tormented bosses. You can get these also. Again, if they up the drop rate, that would really help out. But again, the drop rate is very, very low in general, unless you do this. Now, you get guaranteed about 1 to 2 is very, very consistent. Occasionally you'll get 3, and sometimes you'll just get 1. But basically, this is the main area. You'll see us defeat the boss, and we'll probably get some here. But this is the main area that I wanted to highlight as, if you want to farm this, this is your new endgame content. This is one of the most important things for the next season. If you want to get your best in slot for your build, you need to do this. But basically, the reason why I'm talking about how rare these are in terms of acquiring them, remember, a lot of builds are going to use up to, I would say, minimum 3 or 4 in most builds. Some builds will actually use 5 of these. And on Mythics, in a build, you use about 1 to 3, and if you finish the season journey and do Lilith, and maybe there's an event, you can get about 3 sparks pretty easy, and then if you just craft them, it doesn't really feel as bad if you know what you're doing, and a lot of players will acquire runes and then craft. But the main problem that I have with this, again, you really only get it from this consistently, and it takes about 12 minutes and 30 seconds to do up to wave 10, open up the chest at the very end, as well as killing the boss. Whereas in Mythics, it's 1 to 2% drop chance, about once a minute. Like, if you're running a good build, you can consistently farm, any of the bosses again and again. And this is much, much faster, right? Imagine needing to get all 5 of these brand new blue Chaos Uniques as a drop. And if the Mythic is bad in the game, you at least get 1 spark, but you get 2 sparks and the runes, and then you can craft the Mythic that you want, right? So even if I get a bad Mythic, I can kind of get like halfway towards my Mythic that I want, right? Like a Melted Heart, as the lid drops, you can just get what you want. Now this is where, again, I want to say it becomes quite rough, because the item that you drop is currently account bound, meaning that you cannot trade it. Now, if they implement trade, that really kind of solves a lot of the problems here, and that will be probably my greatest suggestion, because I want to offer them suggestions to make this much better. But the item is not tradable. You can't like salvage it and get some special thing to craft. And I think that they could do some of these. So here are my suggestions to fixing how rare these are, because I think it's a huge point in Season 10 that not lots of content creators are talking about. They're talking about like which builds are OP. And believe me, that is a very important thing. But you also have to look at the casual side of things. If people feel like Mythics are too rare, imagine requiring like 5 of these for your build, and they're even more rare, and they take longer to farm, because again, you have to spend 12 minutes. And on top of that, because you can't just trade runes and then craft them, these are account bound, you can't really get them any other way. You have to play the game, and you really got to do the Infernal Hordes, although you could in theory get them other ways. So here are my suggestions to fixing how rare these are, as well as giving them some feedback. So here's my suggestion. You could use all of these or any of these. So allow us to put the Chaos Uniques anywhere. So like if I get like, let's say the Banished Lord's Talisman Chaos Unique, let me just put it anywhere that I want, right? And that would solve the problem like pretty much instantly, because then it just requires 1 out of 22, and then you have like the 1 out of 4 chance for the GA. That makes things way easier for gearing, and that would actually really allow us to kind of have this build that is a little bit more free in terms of like what's required here. So that's probably my #1 suggestion. The other one would be to allow us to craft uniques, maybe via a like special vendor. If we salvage one, we get like, let's say 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 5, and we can eventually build into what we want. That would be one really good suggestion as well. Again, you can use all of these. And then the other one would be just let us trade the Chaos Uniques. So again, being able to interact with trade, that's simple, all right? And then also another suggestion is to make all of these Chaos Uniques just drop 4 GA. Again, that would cut out the 1 out of 4 chance, again, of the 3 probabilities. You would remove 1 of them, right? That makes things much easier. So also I want to mention that like if we have a bunch of these players that are playing this game and they spend, you know, a couple hundred or 1,000 hours to grind to get these awesome perfect Chaos Uniques, and they finally get their perfect masterwork, because remember, this is going to cost you out of the site. You still have to masterwork all of these Chaos Uniques. It's going to take a long time, right? And I really want to say that it's going to feel bad for those players at the end of the season, assuming that these get deleted. And I want to say that I really would love Blizzard to look at the Eternal Realm and allow Eternal Realm to still kind of exist as a real way to kind of play the game with some of the items that you acquired during the seasons. A lot of other video games do this. I wanted to kind of mention like Path of Exile. You have like the standard items. When you get a crafted godly item, it would feel really bad just to be like, oh, all of your 5 items, because remember, you're losing all of these right here. If you have 5 Chaos Uniques, you literally lose like half of your inventory when the season rolls over. And while I want to say I don't really play on Standard or Eternal, I want to be looking out for those other players in Eternal, because I hear complaints all the time that the Eternal players just get shafted when it comes to the new like season, because they just lose all of their stuff. And so I want to say that would really help out, and that would allow the Eternal players to kind of have a reason to maybe try out something that they played and they enjoyed it. Maybe they could still play it in Eternal and allow like other builds to kind of exist infinitely in Eternal, versus changing up like the itemization and then making it so those players that did maybe jump into the season for the very first time, they don't feel like all their time is wasted when they go back to Eternal. A lot of other action RPGs do that. I'm just mentioning Path of Exile, but I think that it is a good thing, because that way when players invest time into the game, they don't feel like it is completely wasted with that. So those are my suggestions to really help out the casuals here, because I want to say a lot of casuals may drop if they do not fix the drop rate in the game in terms of some of these. I'm not saying that they need to adjust all of these, but again, when your drop rate is basically this here, with again using that 3 probability calculator, it's going to feel very rough. In the PTR, obviously you can just insta make the thing, so it doesn't feel that bad. But if someone had to manually grind these, and remember, there is no trading these, Yeah, I want to say that within the first week, people are going to be like, dude, these are too rare. I can't get the one that I want. It always gives me melted heart of Slig, you know, the same sort of thing. Although in this case, you'll probably get Mother's Embrace, that ring that you always hate seeing. You're going to get a bunch of those, and you're like, well, what am I going to do with this? It's trash. So I think the best suggestion, if I had to offer one suggestion to them, is just being able to salvage. Maybe if you get 5 of these Chaos Unique shards, if you get 5 or 10 of them, you can craft the exact one that you want. That way, when you're going to the Infernal Hordes every single time, even if you don't get the item, you're working towards it. You get 1 or 2 shards, and eventually you're going to be able to build the thing that you want. Have a Infernal Shard new vendor, and that would really help out. But anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. You guys can let me know your thoughts down below, or if you have any other suggestions for these brand new Chaos Uniques. How do we make these easier? Or do you guys like that they're super rare? I know some people that like their action RPGs to be super, super rare, but you guys remember what happened with the Mythic Uniques when everyone was like, dude, these are impossible to get. There's talking about like back in Season 0. It's not that rare to get what you want, but it's on the side of when people are already complaining about Mythics, this is going to be probably something that people will complain about more. Because remember, you can't simply just craft them, and you cannot trade for the runes to craft them, so it's going to take a very, very long time. So anyways, let me know your thoughts down below, but thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next vid. Peace.